Hello, this is Ken, your podcast preacher. Welcome back to my podcast, Deep Waters. This podcast is brought to you by Applied Strength Ministry, where we believe working together in our strengths is the effect of working out the will and calling of God in and through our lives. The title of this message is Baby Shark Dance, 15 billion views on YouTube. And it's funny because as I recorded this the first time, I said, hello, this is Ken, your baby shark dance. I edited it out, but then I thought, it was funny enough to put back in. So I don't know why this message, other than to make a pretty good point, which is that how we spend our time determines the strength of our relationship with God. No, this is not possible for those who are make-believers, fake believers, or non-believers. They will swarm to whatever is popular. But now in that 15 billion number, I wonder how many distracted, and I mean this by way of, this is what you do overspending time, getting to know the God that you will be spending all of eternity with, are included in that number. Or for that matter, any and all of whatever time is spent watching other videos. Now, if you are totally up to speed with all things God, then this message may simply be a tool to share with someone else, who is inebriated with the lures of the devil. Hey, that came out of nowhere. Well, it came from somewhere, didn't it? So let's move to it, shall we? This is a great number if your goal is to monetize your efforts, right? But I am using this statistic to prove a different angle. 15 billion views to watch a video like this, but we also have other music videos with more than 1 billion views. Again, nothing wrong as people got to make a living. But now what about the videos or podcasts that are teaching God's Word, talking about God? I don't know, maybe there's churches online doing the same thing. What about those videos whereby angels are recorded singing? How about the videos where the Holy Spirit is moving powerfully? Compared to the above statistics, they are almost unmeasurable numbers. But why? I mean, according to Google, almost everyone in America is a Christian. It just doesn't make sense. Well, unless somebody is lying, right? Now you say, but podcast preacher, these videos are more entertaining and enjoyable. Then I would say, no problem. Then you are probably not saved. After your gasp subsides, I will explain to you that if you were indeed saved, then you would have the appetite for those less entertaining, but far superior in content videos. You see, when you get authentically born again, the appetite for the things of God is also born in you. Yes, it takes the reading of the Word to kickstart that appetite, but the thing is, like food, your spirit needs Bible anything, God anything, Jesus activity and relationship to remain spiritually nourished. Oh, and did I say every day? Do I look at videos other than spiritual? Yes, but trust me when I say that, it would be easier to measure the time that I am not doing God stuff than to measure when I am. I am not boasting, just providing a living example of what can happen if you give yourself to it. Listen, I'm not special. It doesn't take special talent, above average skill, a super smart brain, a physical physique, having all things, totally together to be the best Christian. It takes all of the opposite of those things. It just takes knowing who you are in relationship to God. And in comparison, I really am nothing compared to Him. I haven't created anything. I can't even create an earwig. And that's one but a trillion things that He created that we know of. And He created everything. We don't even have access to most of what He's created. So perspective helps me in knowing that I want to get to know Him with every minute that I can down here, because I will be spending all of eternity with Him. And I want a head start. So when I see comparatively the numbers of views on the messages of God, I think about the irony and about the condition that we are in today as a human race, in which some of us were predestined to be living a life in relationship with God and are just not doing so. Perhaps you are stuck in a dead church. Well, let's see what you can do about that. How about just not showing up? Yes, leave it and believe it. I have scriptural support for that activity. Revelation 18:4-5. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Isaiah 52:11-12. Depart, depart, go out from there, touch no unclean thing. Go out from the midst of her, be clean, you who bear the vessels of the Lord. For you shall not go out with haste, nor go by flight. For the Lord will go before you, and the God of Israel will be your rear guard. 2 Corinthians 6:17. Therefore come out from among them, and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. You notice in these things one thing that you may not have noticed, which is He's always trying to separate us from our old life, from the old things that we used to do, because we used to be non-believers and we were involved in all that kind of stuff. But now that we're clean, a good part of His Bible is always trying to separate us from the unclean things, So yes, again, these things are also talking about separating yourself from anything that is unclean, which includes all of the unsaved. Live in a cave, podcast preacher? Nope, but continue to go to the old tramping grounds with them. After you get saved? Nay, nay. Yes, I thought about just ending the message there, as it really says it all. But then I could see all of the head shaking in agreement that, yes, that is so true, podcast preacher. And then you would go back to the mindless thumb swipe and wipe exercises yourself. I guess since we are very near the end of all time, oh so near it, that if we actually knew the precise time that Jesus would return, the loudest noise that might ever just be recorded would be the feet that would beat their way to a church hoping that Jesus had his eyes closed the whole time while he was in heaven. I can just hear it now. Oh, the lines to get into Best Buy on Black Friday might even shrink down after hearing that he was at the back door of time. And yet, I say, he always was. Matthew 24, 1-32. Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, Do you not see all these things? Assuredly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another, that shall not be thrown down. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us when these things will be, and what will be the signs of your coming, and of the end of the age. Notice that while Jesus was still with them, they still had it in their hearts to ask him when the end would be, 1999 years ago. And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. The first thing he says is to make sure no one deceives them. No one deceives you. That means there must be a deceiver assigned to deceive you. So even before he answers the questions, he warns them of this one thing, deception. Verse 5, For many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. So now he shares how we will be deceived. False religions, cults, even those in the, non-denominational, denominational, and Catholic churches. So how many is many, as compared to what Luke says in Luke 13:23-24, and what Matthew says in Matthew 7:13-14? It is the other guys on the wide path, and the path is wide because there are many who are deceived. Verse 6, And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So this has happened and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. Verse 7, For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. So this too has happened and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. And there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. Yes, again, so this too has happened and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. All of these are the beginning of sorrows. How long is the beginning? So far, it is no more than 1999 years. But in truth, it happened back when Jesus said it. Verse 9, Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. So this too has happened and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. Verse 10, And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Is he talking about Christians against Christians? Yes, he is. How do you think the Catholic Church killed 65 million authentically born-again Christians? That's how they did it. So, this too has happened, and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. Verse 11, Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. So false prophets are not the ones on the streets, right? Nope, they're in the churches. Well, how did they get there, Ken? Well, they got there because nobody's operating in the spiritual gift of discernment that can detect when somebody comes in who is not motivated by the Holy Spirit. So this too has happened and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. So if this sounds like a punch list, that's because, well, it is. Verse 12, And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Your love has to be pretty cold to kill another Christian brother, right? Yep. So this too has happened and wouldn't be the reason that would hold him up from returning right now. Verse 13, But he who endures to the end shall be saved. What? I thought I was already saved. In the Bible it says that you are saved, are being saved, and will be saved. I think it's a whole journey. And if we can walk away from God at any point in time in that journey, and we can, Peter says so, then we didn't endure, did we? So but this has and hasn't happened. To those of us who are alive, it has not. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations. Verse 14. So this too has been happening in rapidity. Technology has really quickened the day. And then the end will come. Continuing with verse 14. Well, this hasn't happened, but not much stands in the way of it, right? You've seen the punch list. Most of that's already happened. Verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. This has not happened yet, but again, it could be at any time. And I think that if we see this, then we didn't make the rapture cut. Verse 16, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go back and take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time. Nope, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Now the elect is, for example, the 144,000 Jews. So we know we are already in the tribulation at this point in time. Verse 23, then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. That is the Jews, right? See, I have told you beforehand. Now keep in mind, his 12 apostles, I believe, were Jews. So again, it is believed that the elect is the Jews who Jesus is going after during the tribulation. The last Gentile was raptured up and away. Thus the Gentile bride is out of here. What remains is that Jesus is now going after his elect, the Jews. Can a Gentile get saved during this period? Well, think about how many authentically born-again Jews that you know and use that number. In the same way that they were spiritually deaf and blind, the Gentiles will be during the tribulation. Therefore, if they say to you, verse 26, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then the signs of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. Have you ever heard an angel blow a trumpet? I just can't even imagine what that's going to sound like. But even worse, how many people will get caught off guard when they hear that thing? Yeah, that's my rendition of an angel trumpet. And they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors. Verse 32 begins by talking about Israel becoming a nation. This happened in 1948. So again, if we actually knew the precise time that Jesus would return, what would immediately change in your life? Maybe Christmas and Easter services would be held with more reverence than at any time in the past. Perhaps tithing might actually hit a new high level and nearly make it to the 10% mark that Jesus had requested so that we wouldn't tie his hands while he was continuing to do his work through others. John 14:12. Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do because I go to my Father. I know some church expansion projects would soon be completed, paid off or canceled altogether at the I'm returning tomorrow text that Jesus just sent out to the whole world. Perhaps more than half the homeless would magically find employment, and husbands would toss out the TVs, computers, and any and all devices that served as a spiritual doorway, inviting lusts of every imaginable and unimaginable kind into their homes. And well, but so what would you change, Johnny Lightning, in your life if you received a Jesus text? Hey, Bob, this is Jesus. I know you are busy and all, but I will be stopping by tomorrow. Is there a good time for us to meet? No, but really, and be honest with yourself, because short of getting a text from the throne of God, he really could come back at any second. What ministry would you start that you may have been sitting on or waiting for who knows what before you actually started it? Where would you begin serving in the church knowing that he will be stopping by? Would you empty your bank account? Luke 12:16-20. Then he spoke a parable to them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man yielded plentiful. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I will do this. I will put down my barns and build greater, and there I will store all of my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease. In other words, go ahead and retire. Eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, Fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided? Now you see how God interrupted his thoughts? Because in verse 17 it said, he thought within himself. So he was having a mental discussion, and God interrupted it and told him that he was a fool, that he isn't going to live past the night. So what good was it to build up a bank account, to have riches, to collect riches on the earth, and not use them to bless other people? I'm sure there's a message in that for some of us, right? Oh, I can see the dust storm caused by many who would, after they had read the text from Jesus, make a hurried reach for that Bible under the piles of newspaper or on a decorative bookshelf. But wait, another sound would crack to heaven, as parents would all of a sudden wake up to Christian parenting and discipline their child for all of their past indiscretions and disrespectful, mouthy responses. I would imagine that kids might just be found spanking themselves just to clear the slate. Proverbs 23:13-14. Do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell. You want to know why you should discipline your kids? So he doesn't go to hell. Hello. Notice how hello has hell in it? I don't know. It's not a greeting you want to get from hell. That's all I know. For sure, many of the political cockroaches will be found heading to their secret hideaways, hoping Jesus can no longer walk through walls. Oh, but it's funny to imagine, as they got there, that it would already be filled with the Hollywood types. Hey, politicians, there's no room at the inn. We can't hide from this day. Revelation 6:16. And they said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him, that is Jesus, who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. And truly in a sort of satire, and even off-colored funny way, I'm expressing the truth. And but two things here in closing. The first is that we should live our lives as authentically born-again Christians with all urgency in all things pertaining to God. Because the time is really short. And why should we give in to our old human nature, which would just sit on the couch believing that it won't happen in my lifetime? 2 Peter 3:3-4. Knowing this first, that scoffers will come in the last days, walking according to their own lust. This is already happening. And saying, Where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Now note here, it says, For since the fathers fell asleep. He's not talking about non-believers. They expect that this world is going to be around forever, and that mankind is somehow going to figure out a way to stop its destruction. He's talking about other believers. Now that's a bit of revelation, right? The other thing is that even if we got a text from Jesus, unfortunately most would brush it off as a joke, being inevitably caught off guard at his return. It may be the last cries we ever hear coming from earth. 2 Peter 2:1-2. But there were also false prophets among the people, even as there will be false teachers among you, who will secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the Lord who bought them, and bring on themselves swift destruction. And many will follow their destructive ways, because of whom the way of truth will be blasphemed. Listen, there's that word many again. So yes, many people who believe in God will follow their destructive ways. They will get sidetracked and walk back through the narrow gate and jump on the wide path. I say that as a warning, not as a condemnation. Okay, so one more and I leave it. Hey, Pastor, did you get this strange text? What text? Well, it says it's from Jesus the Christ, and it says something about him coming back to earth to pick up his bride church, his bride Christ, in the wildest chariot of fire ever witnessed in all of heaven and earth. What? What are you talking about? Are you just making up stories again, Elder? No, look at your phone. Well, that is unless you didn't get the message. But if you didn't get it, whatever could that mean, Pastor? So since the pastor didn't like that little bit of elder-induced sarcasm, he just jerks the phone away from the elder and reads it himself. Oh, this must be a scam or something. As the Bible says, no one will know the day or the hour. That's funny, Pastor, but that's not true. I have been taught by listening to the podcast preacher messages that we can know within a reasonable amount of time. Besides, it also says that we should be watching, lest he show up at a time that we do not expect. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-8. But concerning the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should not overtake you as a thief. There it is. You are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night, nor of the darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as others do. In other words, let us not be paying attention. But let us watch and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet the hope of salvation. But so back to my story. So the elder grabs his phone back from the pastor and says, I should get back home to, well, get things in order. The pastor turns and goes back to the church building, looking as though he is not sure. It's a scam. Sunday comes and the church doors are locked up. The pastor is standing outside waiting for everyone to show up. When they get there, the pastor tells everyone that they will begin their new training program beginning today. Hey everyone, we have decided to equip you for the work of ministry and to designate many of you as disciples. Like the 5 virgins that didn't have any oil, that's exactly and precisely what this is. It is too late to train up when the spaceship of Jesus shows up. Oh, now. But the scene would play out just like that. And it's funny to think about it, but also at the same time, considering if a text went out, that it would be too late for both the pastor, the elder, and all of the sheep that depended on mankind for their salvation. Yes, the mankind in today's churches. A Christian is not supposed to listen to someone who's not saved. Wisdom doesn't come from their mouth. Luke 12:35-48. Let your waist be girded and your lamps burning, and you yourselves be like men who wait for their master, when he will return from the wedding, that when he comes and knocks, they may open to him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, will find watching. Assuredly I say to you that he will gird himself and have them to sit down to eat, and will come and serve them. And if he should come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them so, this means if he delays, blessed are those servants. But know this, if the master of the house had known what hour a thief would come in, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. Then Peter said to him, Lord, do you speak this parable only to us, or to all people? And the Lord said, Who then is that faithful and wise steward, whom his master will make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of the food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you that he will make him ruler over all that he has. But if that servant says in his heart, My master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat the male and female servants, and to eat and drink and be drunk, the master of that servant will come on a day when he is not looking for him, and at an hour when he is not aware. Pay attention to those lines right there. And will cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. So if you're not watching for God, you're actually considered an unbeliever. And even worse, you may not know it until Jesus comes and then cuts you in two. Whatever that means. I don't think it's cutting you in two physically. And that servant who knew his master's will and did not prepare himself or do according to his will shall be beaten with many stripes. But he who did not know, yet committing things deserving of stripes, shall be beaten with few. For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. And to whom much has been committed, of him they will ask the more. So yes, we will be held accountable for being ready when Jesus shows up. And we will also know if he accepts our work or if he has caught us just playing around. What I mean is that if we're just going to church every Sunday, not growing, but really think that church is really the easy stuff. If they teach it, then it must be true, right? But in looking around, no one is actually doing the work of Jesus. And you see that this is why Jesus will know if you have been just playing around. You stayed there because it was a comfortable place. And as far as I know, being a Christian isn't always comfortable. He knows what the works look like because he did them himself. But if you indeed are doing the work, there is an amazing grace and supernatural ability to do that work spiritually accurate. And no worries, as soon as you make this change in your walk and then proceed to tell your church, don't be surprised if they won't just try and shut you down. Hey pastor, I just prayed for someone over the weekend and they got healed. Well, we don't believe in that nonsense, so you should stop praying for that, or you're going to have to leave this church. So you think I'm kidding? Just go to any old church, including yours, and look to see if you experience any supernatural miracle signs and wonders. Salvation is a miracle, but not the one that I'm talking about. Be lit up and so on fire for God that instead of you getting split ends, you get burn ends. Hey, it's a barbecue joke. Well, that's it for today. Remember, it's not what you find wrong or disagree with regarding these messages, but what you can take away from it. Together we can do more to impact the kingdom than if we work alone. Let's flip the script and kill, steal, and destroy the works of the enemy and create space for the light of light to shine through in people's lives. Plant a seed and click on the like and subscribe button. Let's build this ministry together. Thanks, and see you next time in Deep Waters.